Welcome back to the Ready Room Podcast. I'm your host, Josh, and today we're talking about how to get educated for gunsmithing. Hope you enjoy. Guys, it's great to be back. I know it's been a long time, but I appreciate you guys waiting, giving me some feedback. Today we're talking about what to look for in a gunsmithing school or how to get educated for gunsmithing. I know it's been a really long time, guys. Life has picked up. Obviously, you guys know I have a young child, and I'm trying to balance work life, family life, and a hobby. The only other hobby I have is competition shooting, and I get to do that about once a month for an evening. So I do miss making these videos for you guys, podcasts. It's not just on YouTube. It's obviously more popular on podcast sites than it is on YouTube. But if you are watching, I want to apologize for my hair. The result of going to church, having a meeting, working, and playing with my kid. Long day. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for just waiting, guys. I really appreciate you guys having interest. Today's episode is special. I told you guys a while back that if anybody has a good episode idea and sends it to me, I'll make it and I'll shout you out. And I'm a man of my word. I received a request from an episode from a listener. God, I'm struggling. It's been a while since I've recorded for you guys. I received a request for an episode from a listener, and it was a great idea. So this episode goes out to Levi, whose last name I don't think I should share. I don't think I should share his last name, but just in case. Levi, this episode goes out to you. Thank you so much for suggesting what to look for in a gunsmithing school. First off, it's going to be reputation, guys. This is a difficult one to figure out. But a school's reputation is difficult to truly judge. Many people who have attended may have serious biases that affect what they think or say about a school. You would hope that people could be mature and talk about the actual education they received as opposed to talking about personality differences, subject preferences, etc. But what you're looking for is confirmation from other alumni that they are teaching valuable knowledge and skills that help them in their career choice. Did they talk about business side of gunsmithing? Did they talk about how to run a successful shop versus working for an established shop? Do they teach how to specialize as opposed to being a general gunsmith? You want to make sure they're providing information on all sides of the career path you've chosen. I can tell you right now, there are pros and cons to being specialized or being a general gunsmith. There are pros and cons to starting your own gunsmithing business or working for somebody else. They all have their pros and cons. Are they giving you a spread of information? Because you don't want to just learn how to fix some guns and then get dumped out into the world with no idea what to do next. Some of you may be really young, 18, 20, jumping into the world. You're not really sure what you want to do. You're going to try out gunsmithing. You want the spread of information. I know some of you may already be established in life, maybe in your 20s, 30s, or late 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s, looking for a career change. But you need to know how to run the business or work for somebody else instead of just how to fix the guns. So do what you can to find honest reviews of the school. Look up their graduation rates. See how much detail they go into in their course descriptions, and call them. Call and ask all the questions you can think of. If they want students, they're going to answer your questions. I recommend speaking to the department directors specifically, and if they're not available, see if you can find time to speak to individual instructors. But you can always go in person and try to set up a meeting and conversation. They're going to try to get you as a student if they're a good school. Before we go to the next trait I would look for in a school, I would like to say, guys, if you enjoy the podcast, I really request that you leave a review. And the reason is it gives me direct feedback and shows me that people care, people like the information I'm giving them, and it's helping them out. I know I've met some people in person recently, which has been phenomenal, just to meet people in the wild that were listeners of the podcast that I had no idea people in my area were listening. I know it's done okay on the podcast sites. It's not nothing, but it caught me off guard to meet people in real life who were like, "Hey, you're the guy who does the Ready Room podcast." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, I was going to leave you a review, but you haven't put one out in a few months, so I figured you were done." And guys, I mean it when I say, unless I make a public post or a final podcast episode saying this is it, I ain't done yet. I just ain't found the time. That's all. I am busy, and I really do. Every week that goes by that I don't get a podcast episode out, I feel guilty. But there's only so many hours in the day, so I do what I can. If you're watching on YouTube, I know it's not the most exciting thing to watch on YouTube, but I would really appreciate it if you subscribe and hit the notification bell, because there are more things coming to YouTube that I have said for over a year now are coming. They're not there yet, but I am doing as much as I possibly can at the moment. I'm really hoping to free up some more time and get a groove down where I can do more things for YouTube and put out more podcast episodes for the podcast sites. So please leave a review, subscribe, follow on if you're on Spotify, whatever you can do to let me know that you appreciate what I'm doing, only because I want to make sure I'm helping people. If I'm not helping people with the podcast, then it's pointless. I don't love the sound of my own voice. Be honest with you, I'm not a huge public speaker. It's not really my favorite thing to do. So it would really help me out, guys. You should have left some reviews. To those of you who I met in person that listen to the podcast, I'm calling you out directly. Now's your time to leave a review. I appreciate you. And I'm not done. I'd like to get 2 more out before the end of the year, but we'll see how life goes. So the next thing we're going to talk about, guys, as a trait in a gunsmithing school you should look for is adaptive knowledge. Are they keeping up with evolving techniques, or are they sticking to traditional techniques just because those techniques are tradition? Bluing used to be done only one way, and now it's done through multiple different techniques, each with their own pros and cons. I can tell you that the school I attended only taught one technique, hot salt bluing. They mentioned other methods but didn't go into detail or actually teach us how to do them. I can tell you right now that sometimes you need to rust blue instead of hot salt bluing. For example, most double-barreled shotguns cannot be hot salt blued because the barrel ribs are soldered on and will come apart in the salt bath. So your barrels will come apart in a hot salt bath on most double-barreled shotguns. A lot of times, some guns have a niter blued screws. Their screws are niter blued, okay? Forgive my grammar. If you're swapping one out, you need to know how to niter blue that one screw so it matches the rest of them. When you're machining, there are multiple ways to chamber a new barrel blank. Heck, there are even multiple ways to put a barrel in the lathe. Look up the difference between manually indicating a barrel on both sides of a headstock or using a collet chuck and center rest instead. Being able to work on a wide variety of firearms means you need to have a wide variety of skills, and don't want to be learning those skills on a customer's firearm. You don't want to be in that situation. Trust me, I've been there. You don't want to be there. Try to learn as many techniques as you can at an actual school. If you're already in a school that's not exactly teaching you a wide variety of skills, push them. Ask them to go over other methods for some of the jobs you're doing. For example, I was taught that you have to spend tons of time sanding a stock down through the old finish, through the old dents, to get down to a level where you can start sanding it down smooth for a refinish job. It wasn't until I came into contact with Mark Novak that I learned you can use a scraper to scrape all the old finish off and get down to bare wood. You can steam all the dents out with a wet rag and an iron and cut your time by half at the minimum. There is more than one way to skin a cat, as the saying goes, and you should try to learn all of the available methods. The next trait I would look for in a good gunsmithing school is their equipment. Do they have access to tools, machinery, and space to actually work on projects with proper equipment? If you're trying to chamber a rifle with a lathe that barely works and doesn't turn concentric, you're not going to have a good time. You want to check out their facility before you attend the school. There are very few schools in the country that offer a gunsmithing program, and out of those schools, not very many of them see the gunsmithing department worthy of investing much of their money into. My school was an example of that latter trait. We used the machining department's facility for machining, and I can tell you that out of the 20 lathes in that facility, I would only use 3 of them. The rest had a variety of issues, and that's kind of putting it mildly. Some wouldn't turn true, some couldn't auto-feed, some had issues with threading, some had completely out-of-commission lead screws, some compound rests wouldn't lock into place, etc. I mean, the list goes on. We had to make parts for them on other lathes a lot of the time. I preferred this specific clausing lathe from the 1960s that, despite being an absolute unwieldy unit of a lathe, turned true as could be and handled everything I threw at it with ease. The school refused to take the issues with the machinery seriously, especially since a lot of the issues we had were specific to the gunsmithing students, and therefore not an immediate issue for the suits handling the money. A lot of guys didn't need to turn perfectly concentric screws, so the problems with those lathes weren't taken seriously because it worked for the machinery department, and it looked like we were just being dramatic. Look for a school that is willing to invest in their students regardless of the department they're in. You want to see that the equipment being used is maintained. You don't want to get a subpar education that you're spending money on because you had to learn on a subpar piece of equipment. And if your school doesn't even have machinery, I would reconsider heavily. There's a lot of machining in gunsmithing, and even basic machining knowledge is a must. Remember, the difference between an armorer and a gunsmith is armorers replace parts, gunsmiths can make the parts. That's the big difference. All right, next trait is cost. Your degree or certification should not cost as much as a law degree from Yale. That's just it, guys. This is blue-collar work, meaning you shouldn't need to get a white-collar-sized loan to attend the school. You're not going to be making six figures as a new gunsmith unless you specialize in repairing $60,000 British shotguns. So don't put yourself into so much debt that it will take the rest of your life to pay off to go get a trade job. That's honesty, guys. You need to be realistic, and so does the school. Trade schools are often much less expensive, so it shouldn't be too hard to avoid unreasonable costs. But one of the biggest issues I heard about the Colorado School of Trades is their tuition is absolutely insane. And I've talked to 5 different people who got gunsmithing training from the Colorado School of Trades. From what I can tell, they charge $25,000 for tuition and then another $4,500 for tools. That is outrageous. And unless you're a trust fund kid, I would not recommend paying that much for a trade school. They are in the top 30 trade schools in the country, and I've heard the program is fantastic. But man, that's a lot of money to spend for a trade school. I'm just being right up front with you guys. That's expensive. I don't think it's worth it. Although I do think they're probably one of the best gunsmithing schools in the country, if not number one. I don't know if that money offsets, or if that education level offsets the cost. Just keep that in mind, please. Think about cost. For contrast, my school, we were only required to pay for $500 worth of tools to attend the program. Don't get me wrong, it would have been nice to have more tools and nicer tools, but we ended up making a lot of the tools to make up for it. We made them by hand. So this taught us tool making skills and saved us money. The school worked the tools they thought they could pull out of the required tool purchase. They had us make so that we learned some skills while we made tools and saved money. That was a good compromise, I think. In my opinion, that was a good compromise, okay? Talking too fast, guys. It's been a while. I'm not used to this recording thing anymore. I'm out of habit. And my hair looks like a disaster. Golly. Luckily, those of you who aren't watching, you're just listening, you're lucky. Look like a hobo. The next trait I would like to look at as something to consider is the level of qualification. Armorer school or gunsmithing school. What would you like to do? Not to mention certificate or degree. This completely depends on what you are looking to do as a career. Some schools offer armorer level programs, which more or less teach you how to replace parts and diagnose some issues. I'm going to be honest with you, you can learn most of that from YouTube. The internet can teach you a lot of things, and replacing simple parts in simple firearms is one of those things. There is some value to taking a specific company's armorer certification program, like Glock or SIG, etc., but I don't know if a school is the way to go for that specific thing. The reason you become a certified armorer is because some places are just looking for someone who is certified to work on a specific firearm with the express permission from that company. A lot of times, police departments will have one officer certified to work on department sidearms. A lot of other times, you do it just so you get the specific certification with a specific company's gun, just so that when you work on firearms, you don't void that specific company's warranty on that firearm. It also looks good to customers. I'm not a certified armorer for any specific company because I refuse to pay money so that Glock can tell me I'm qualified to swap one of their triggers. It is what it is. I'm a gunsmith. I work on everything. I've never been certified with any specific firearm manufacturer because I see it as a waste of money. It is what it is. And I can tell you one time I was calling a specific gun company that I will leave nameless to warranty out one of my customers' firearms. They asked what the issue was. It was a revolver, so I went into very specific detail as to what the problem was. The employee paused for a second after I told him and said, "Man, I can tell you that my techs who check to see if a gun qualifies for warranty are not going to be able to tell that you fixed that. He said, you clearly know what you're doing, so just go ahead and fix it so your customer doesn't wait 6 weeks to get their gun back." So I would argue that if you're just looking for an armorer level education, you might just be better off learning as much as humanly possible from the internet and any gunsmithing books you can find. Then get some company-specific armorer certifications to help show customers that you know what you're doing. So if you're just looking to swap triggers and Glocks and SIGs, dude, no, don't go to school for that. Just YouTube everything. Go take their armorers classes for those companies, get the certifications, and then just do those specific things. But only start a business or work for a company if you're only performing armorer level tasks. Do not risk damaging a customer's firearm because of your ego. Meaning, if you just have YouTube experience and Glock certification, don't go advertising that you're going to go work on HKs. Like, stay in your lane, man. Be realistic. Knock your ego down a peg. And if you're not going to learn how to work on everything, work on the things you for sure know that you can work on. Okay? Now, that was more of the armorer's level qualification stuff. If you're looking for a gunsmithing level education, you're typically going to see two options: a certification or an associate's degree. I don't exactly know the difference or how different these will be for every single school, but I can tell you the difference in my situation for the school I went to. Now, something that's going to be a standard difference is the fact that associate's degrees, and pretty much any degree for that matter, is going to require some level of general ed credits. I think that's absolutely moronic because I shouldn't have to take a science class for a trade degree. That shouldn't even be something to consider. But the American education system is the way it is. So maybe one day that'll change. At my school, the difference between a gunsmith certification and a degree was the gen ed credits that we just talked about, and that the degree included an entire new semester added on the end. The last semester was treated as if you were actually working at a gunsmithing shop. We had to actually have 30 repair, refinish, modification, or build jobs completed by the end of the semester. A minimum of 15 of those jobs were supplied by the school, and the other 15 could be either our own firearms or more of the school's provided firearms, which, by the way, were supplied by customers who wanted free gunsmithing jobs. Kind of like in hair school, people can go get haircuts for free because the students are trying to learn. Well, people would drop off their guns at the school I went to, and they were used in the final semester's projects. And it would depend on what the job was, but one gun could even count as 2 projects, depending on what was wrong or what you were doing to it. We had to write intake forms for every firearm as if they were coming into our shop, including condition upon arrival, evaluation of issues, safety concerns, etc. Then we had to write up the invoice on services rendered, costs, and recommendations. This taught us how to work as if we were currently attempting to run a shop and turn a profit. It also taught us how to avoid mistakes. If a gun comes in for a sight replacement and you don't check to see if everything works and you give the firearm back to the customer, they could say it worked before you touched it and that you broke it because it doesn't work now. Even though all you did was swap the sights, you want to avoid situations where a customer can put your livelihood at risk because you don't have written proof of something. This was the actual advantage of the associate's degree. For an entire semester, we had to work like we were running a gunsmith shop, and we're actually repairing people's firearms, which we were doing, by the way. This is a relatively short list of traits, guys. It's not that hard, especially since there are probably 10 or less gunsmithing schools in the country. There's one in South Carolina. There is one in Colorado. There is an armorer school in North Carolina. There is a gunsmith school in Pennsylvania. There are more than that, but those are the ones I know of specifically. Now we get into what I think is a dangerous topic. Online schools for gunsmithing, which I didn't even write notes down for because it's going to get a little hot. I almost went to SDI, okay? I almost signed up for SDI, which is the Sonoran Desert Institute, and if you watch any YouTube at all, including guns, you're going to see lots of gun YouTubers advertising for Sonoran Desert Institute and how it's a great program. It's not a great program. It's a program that is pretty much designed to just eat GI Bills. It's basically a degree mill. Well, they need to crank out a certain amount of degrees every year, and they will take as much GI Bills as they can find. I've actually spoken to a lot of veterans who thought they were going to get a pretty awesome gunsmithing education, used up a lot of their GI Bill, got done and realized, I don't know squat. Gunsmithing is about as hands-on as a job can get, just like being a car mechanic. It is not easy to learn anything involved in gunsmithing online. Now, I'm going to back up a second because I just said earlier that you could learn a lot of gunsmithing or armorer level stuff on YouTube. And this is true. But when I'm talking about gunsmithing, refinishing a stock, I challenge anyone to watch a YouTube video on how to refinish a stock. Follow the YouTube video step by step and see if you get the exact same results as the person who made the video. The answer is you're never going to get the exact same results as the person who made the video because every hunk of wood is different. Every brand of sandpaper is different. Maybe you grabbed a different oil. Maybe you grabbed a different finishing, what do you want to call it? I mean, let's just say you grabbed a spar urethane. Everything's going to be different. The humidity in your shop, your garage, is going to be different than the one who made the video. Everything's going to be different. Now, if you watch the video, you have a basic understanding of the steps you need to take to finish a stock. As a gunsmith, you should know exactly why you have different results than the person who made the video. You should be able to realize, oh, the grain structure on this is much more open than the guy who made the video. Or it's so humid it took longer for this to dry, etc., etc. You can learn a lot from YouTube. It's pretty hard to learn manual skills on YouTube. Swapping out a trigger in a Glock is very easy. Rebuilding a PPSH 41 as a parts kit is not the same thing. I know I've kind of slowed down here, but I'm trying to choose words wisely because I really do appreciate all my listeners, those of you who went to SDI especially, because I think a lot of people are looking for information and they didn't get the information they wanted from their school. And some of them don't realize how little they know yet because they haven't tried to run a business yet. But even me, going to school for gunsmithing, learning a lot, and then starting a business, when I started the business was when I realized how little I actually knew. Because I thought that degree meant I knew something. And I did know something. I knew more than the average Joe. I did not know enough at the time to be running the business I ran. So I reached out to Mark Novak for help. And he, being an amazing gunsmith and an amazing person, was willing to share knowledge, which is a big problem in the gunsmithing community because most aren't. I don't know why gunsmiths are so hell-bent on acting like every other gunsmith in the country is their enemy and competitor. I'm not competing with Mark Novak, and I'm not even on the same league as him. In my opinion, he's probably the best gunsmith in the Southeast. If you think I'm wrong, tell me a different gunsmith, and I'll try to have him on the show, on the podcast. I'll talk to him. Mark Novak would never claim to be the best gunsmith in the Southeast, but I am claiming that he's the best gunsmith in the Southeast. And part of that is because of his willingness to share information. SDI, back to online schools. From what I've been told by everyone I've talked to who went to the SDI, they got 2 physical projects. And one of them, you were able to choose whether or not you wanted to do an 80% lower AR-15 and an 80% 1911. If you didn't have the tools to mill out something, you were kind of SOL. There was nothing that could be done. You had to figure something out. You had to figure out a way to be able to complete those 80% jobs. And this is part of the problem with online schools. It's a lot of books, it's a lot of reading, it's a lot of video teaching, and then it's 1 or 2 manual projects that the tools are not provided to you. I don't mean small tools, I mean machinery. That's expensive, guys. I don't know if you've ever tried to look at a used milling machine, but a used milling machine goes from anywhere from $6,500 to $15,000. Lathes are expensive as well. There's another gunsmithing school that I'm just now started seeing ads for this year, and it's Modern Gunsmithing School, another online school. I don't know much about it, and I'm not going to look into it much, guys. If you really do want to get a serious gunsmithing education, I would highly recommend avoiding online schools. I think you'll think it's an okay education and you're learning a lot until you try to run a business or work for a gunsmith shop that expects you to know what you're doing. You're going to realize too soon or too quickly that you don't know as much as you thought you did, and you wish you had more information. And that brings us to what I think is probably the best option on this entire list, and that's an apprenticeship. Apprenticeships are like a great woman. They are hard to find, but if you find one, you had better not let it pass you up, because you may never get the chance again. Apprenticeships are almost impossible to find right now. Now, I know the American Gunmakers Guild advertises that a lot of their members are offering apprenticeships, but they're hard to get. A lot of people want them. And a lot of the local gunsmiths that aren't part of the American Gunmakers Guild or the American Pistol Makers Guild or whatever all these different guilds are, they're too busy to do an apprenticeship, or they're unwilling because they see it as competition. If I lived closer to Mark Novak, I would be trying to get him to make me an official apprentice as opposed to just being a mentor I can call when I'm in a tight spot. Apprenticeships give you hands-on experience with a person who is guaranteed to have had to run a shop in his lifetime. One of the issues with some of the schools is that some of the instructors have never actually worked for or ran a gunsmithing shop, because it's a bit incestuous. A gunsmith student can go to the Colorado School of Trades, graduate with honors and do perfect, get hired by that same school to run a certain part of the program, and then get hired by a different school to start their program. I'm speaking from experience. It's as far as I'll go. I might piss some people off. I don't see that as 100% good. I see that, don't get me wrong, the person I'm speaking about specifically had great skills in certain areas of gunsmithing, but they had never worked for a gunsmithing shop, and they had never ran a gunsmithing shop. Now, I had a director of my gunsmithing program who had actually ran a shop for almost 20 years. There's a lot of experience that comes with that. Instructors are teaching, if somebody's just working with a school, they're teaching the same techniques all the time. A person running a gunsmithing shop is running into problems all the time that they have to figure out. And this adds to their experience and their knowledge. I would really recommend finding someone that's willing to offer an apprenticeship. And if you can afford to, basically have an unpaid internship, do it. It is an opportunity that will pay off greatly. I know some of you guys may have seen the episode with Zeb Zeb Gunmaking was an apprentice of a gunmaker in America, and then, rather recently, flew over to Britain to work with someone named, who on Instagram, I can't remember the guy's name, so you'll have to forgive me. On Instagram, the guy was Gunmaking UK, and she apprenticed with him for a few weeks to learn some techniques on traditional side-by-side shotgun making. Zeb showed great initiative to reach out and continue learning even after her initial apprenticeship was done. Because, guys, you're never done learning. If you think your learning is complete, you're wrong, no matter what area of life it is. Whether it's shooting, whether it's history. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you stop learning, you're losing. It's just continue to learn and understand that you are a student of life till the day you die. Whether it's learning more wisdom, more gunsmithing skills, how to deal with people better, you should always be learning, and an apprenticeship is a great opportunity that I think everyone should take. Even if you just graduated from gunsmithing school, I think the first thing you should do is go straight to find an apprentice or someone to offer an apprenticeship. An apprenticeship should be the first thing you do out of school, not starting a business like I did. I had to learn things the hard way, guys, which is why I'm giving you this information. Not because I'm saying do as I say, not as I do, even though it's true. It's because I made mistakes that I don't want to see all of you make. I'm hoping to offer you some information that helps you. Because if you look at the episode about what I learned running a gunsmithing shop, it's hard. It's difficult. And I learned things the hard way because I'm a stubborn human being. But since I've learned those things, instead of just keeping that information to myself, I'm trying to push it to you guys so you can go, okay, I was thinking about opening up a gunsmithing shop, and I just graduated last week. Maybe I'll look for a year-long apprenticeship first. That year-long apprenticeship might offer you more knowledge and technique and skill than 2 years of gunsmithing school. And I mean that seriously. There's a third-generation gunsmith about an hour from me who is not offering an apprenticeship. But if he was, I probably would have done that instead of going to gunsmithing school. It's something to consider, guys. I really do think it's the most important thing on this podcast episode is look for an apprenticeship. Levi, you were mentioning some things to me. I would highly recommend, Levi, go get an apprenticeship, bud, if you can. I don't know what situation you're in. I know you know this episode is dedicated to you for creating, for suggesting the idea. But I'm telling you personally, go find an apprenticeship if you can. And if you can afford to move maybe an hour away or 2 hours away to get closer to an apprenticeship, do that, man. It will pay off in spades with the knowledge. The last thing I do want to cover is if you're a hobbyist and you're really doing this for yourself for fun, I would probably specialize. Whatever's going to be the most fun for you, specialize. So at my school, if you were just like, hey man, I kind of want to work with wood a lot more. I want to do gunsmithing and carpentry, like woodworking. Man, I would go to the school I went to and get the certificate instead of the associate's degree. Because with the certificate, you didn't need the general education credits, and you didn't need the last semester because it doesn't really have much to do with you. You're looking at the wood portion, which is the second and third semester. And honestly, you could probably do a carpentry for that. But if you're like, oh, well, I just want to do, I don't know, I guess 80%ers are off the table now because of the stupid ATF. But if you just wanted to do some specific machining jobs, like, oh, all I want to do is slide cuts on Glocks. I want to start a business doing slide cuts on Glocks and SIGs. Well, go take a CNC class instead of a gunsmithing class, Nothing wrong with specializing and, being a hobbyist who does stuff for friends. You know what I mean? Like, don't break the bank because you want to do one specific thing. We had one guy in our class who just wanted to work on, I don't want to hurt his feelings, so he just wanted to work on one specific thing. And then when we finished the entire program, he decided to completely change and go do something completely unrelated to gunsmithing. He went to school on his GI Bill and did nothing with it. Now, that's fine. He still learned some stuff. The knowledge is in there, but he kind of wasted time. He could have been focusing on the other business he started the entire time. Figure out what you want to do, guys. Don't be someone who's forced into going to school for something because your parents said you had to, and you have no idea what you're going to do with your life because you might find out halfway through that it's not what you want to do, and then you drop out or switch and lose money. If you have parents that are telling you, hey, you have to go do this, maybe sit down with them and have an honest conversation with, I don't want to do that, or I don't know what I want to do yet. Can I take 6 months to figure it out, or a year to figure it out? Can I go look at stuff? And by the way, in my opinion, if you're going to take a year to not go to college, because I think college is a hellhole, you should be working. This is not party time. You're an adult now. Get a job, okay? Don't be a bum. Get a job. I'm looking at you right into the camera. If you're listening, I'm speaking to you. Get a job. Figure out what you want to do while you're working. Be a contributing member to society. Guys, that's pretty much all I have for you. I know it's a shorter episode than normal, not an hour long like normal, but it was a pretty simple topic to go over. I don't think I skipped anything. Let me triple check. I did not. I talked way too fast in the first page. That's why it went by so fast. I got to ask again, guys, if you like the information I'm putting out to you, definitely leave a review. If you have an episode idea that you think you want me to do, then send it to me. If it's a good idea, I will email back to you and tell you it was a good idea and I'm making the episode. I emailed Levi back. I didn't ignore him. He got an email back. A couple emails even. We corresponded for a little bit. I'm very busy, so I did actually end up not talking to him for 2 weeks because I'm a bad person. And my schedule is full, and I keep thinking, oh, I'll get to this person when I get home and I can sit down for 5 seconds. So I'll push the notification out of the way. I get home, I work at home, I come upstairs, I put my daughter to bed, and then I sit down and forget that there was a notification I pushed off my phone to respond to. So Levi, that's my fault. It's not because I was ignoring you. I really did appreciate you reaching out. And to those of you who said you were going to leave me a review if I put more episodes out, well, boom, episode. Leave a review, okay? What else to talk about? Oh, YouTube. Once again, just subscribe. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to me, okay? I just want you to be able to see things when I finally do videos, which I'm working on, but cameras are expensive. I have some lighting. I got some lighting. It's not in this room. It's down in the work area. I have recorded some things that got corrupted, because life's not fair and continually tries to keep me from making progress. But that is all I have for you guys. I would like you to remember that every single gun law is an infringement. And I can't wait for the next episode. I will see you guys next time. Take care.